Hi everyone, it's Maria from Jardin La Papier. Welcome to my channel on this hot summer day. I am back with another artist journal or art book for beach lovers and beachcombers. So I'll go ahead and give you just the highlights here. It is a large handbound book, and it's an antique book for antique pottery, the history of antique pottery and porcelain. And it's about 7.5 inches wide by 10.5 inches tall, and the spine, which I've left open because that's a popular request, and also because for artists who like that space, to get the book open wide as much as possible, I like to do this French link and Coptic stitch, and the spine width is just about 2.25 inches. So here's the back. It's covered with a vintage French fabric. It's a grain sack or a flour sack fabric. And the cover has been stitched together using pieces of French, antique French, the 200-year-old, plus more of the grain sack. And then this sack from Japan, I'll flash the name on the screen, I keep forgetting what it's called. Sakabukoro, I think. It was used to strain sake, so fermented sake. So that's where the staining comes from, was the persimmon that they use in the process. It does have these six fabrics cobbled together, including a couple of Japanese. These two are the Japanese, and it is done in a traditional, well, not traditional, it's inspired by boro, which is the patchwork of Japanese clothing and items, just patched together all of their fabrics. In fact, this fabric here, this Japanese sake sack, actually has the original stitching that they had done to the bag itself to try and, preserve what they have. And it has this closure here, which is just done up in twine. You don't have to have the rope there. But you'll notice on the cover there are 3 hidden magnets on the cover so that you can put your vintage or vintage. I think this is a Dutch bicycle license plate. And then this is, of course, your sea star, which I've placed and found extra heavy duty magnets because these fabrics are pretty thick, especially this Sakabukuro one from Japan. Very heavy fabrics. And then this one as well has a hidden one actually in the pockets. So I'll try to take one out. This one is always in there a little too deep, so you might need some tweezers to take it out, but it's a top pocket here, and then this is a bottom tuck where a piece of the paint swatches that I had made has the actual magnet in it. So you could just hide that in there if you want to use your magnet, and then just cover that up, and then pretty much anything will stick, including this bike license plate. So I love that snap, when you just let something go and it snaps. So when you're writing or drawing and or painting in your art journal, you could remove your little starfish or your sea stars. It does come with an optional tin of seashells and porcelain or pottery bits from Greece. So I'll give you some extras, to layer up your collages with. And, there are some shells collected from here in the Pacific Northwest, my uncle's backyard. So comes with a dirt-free. And then some other seashells that I've either found on Etsy or different shops around Washington. And these would be fun to sketch in your journal if you haven't started your own seashell collection yet. There's that bottle. I have that other project on YouTube where you can do floating boxes if you want. A little spyglass that I got from the Museum of Glass in Tacoma. Some, not agates, and I'll have to write down, I think I wrote down the name of each one of these, and including this large one here, I think. And these are your little porcelain and pottery bits that come from the sea, GNC. And I love the little bits of pottery with the blue and white. So you'll see why in some of the pages. And then some of these really tumbled, smoothed out pieces of pottery that almost, I mean, I don't even know how many years that would have taken. Acrylic paint scrolls that I've made for you so that you can layer up your different collages in the journal. So okay, let's go ahead and get started. It's a lot of it is abstract, just because I've been more comfortable with that style of art lately, and it allows me to just go ahead and embrace imperfection and also art on the go. So when you open it up, it does have my acrylic paint scene of a surfer trying to catch a wave in Nazaré in Portugal. I went ahead and cut that up for you. So you'll notice the front book cover or end page is my acrylic painting with the oil pastels, and on the back I did go ahead and cut up my mixed media collage of the Columbia River that just empties out into the Pacific Ocean. And so you'll see a little bit of that blue French fabric on the side there that really accentuates part of the river or extends part of the river, the birds going down that scene. So the two end pages already start with art, and the front cover, of course, starts with a little bit of art. I've been obsessed lately, and that's probably the correct word, with boro, which is, like I mentioned, the patchwork of fixing things in Japan with just little fabrics. So all three of these fabrics on top of the patchwork acrylic painting that I did are Japanese. They're all vintage. This one's at least 75 years old. It's from the 1950s, and I've just given you the description on the back. It does have a magnet, so when you click it to the 1903 French surveyor's document, it has that nice snap, and it won't go anywhere, no matter how heavy it is. I think magnets are my brand new favorite thing to use. They're not cheap though, these really strong magnets, but they are on Amazon. I'll try to remember to link them below. And you know I love origami if you've seen my channel before or watched my videos before. And this is, what do they call this? A navel shell. And there's the designer, Tomoko Fuse. And this was tough. I had to practice at least 3 of these to get to it, and this is newsprint paper, which is pretty soft, but still, I had to draw my lines, but it was worth it in the end, because it's actually something that you could, you know, display at your desk if you had something. And of course, my little labels that I love to make. And then this document is from the 1700s, so you're going to see, just assume that all the documents in here are French. There might be a couple of maybe Italian, but I don't remember. I don't think so. This one's from 1719, and they had an accounting book that went all the way through beyond 1724, I believe. 1916 actually. And this is the back of this original document that's on the front. There's the date, 1903. If you've seen the movie Flipper from 1963, this is their little beach cottage on the Florida Keys. I think it's called Grassy Keys. And this was right after the tornado hit. So their fence had been torn down, part of their roof was off, but I just love that green. And in fact, this is primarily what the palette of By Sand and Sea is. Your sand and your different sea colors. And then, of course, Mother Nature gives you shells that are in so many different colors, but a lot of it is already abstract in form and how they actually come together to form these shells. You know, because it is meant to be an artist book or an art journal, you know, is going to have a lot of blank pages for you to be able to do all of your mixed media. So these are just examples and some things to inspire you. You know, in fact, part of your collection, this shell here, this one, actually I might end up keeping, swapping it out because you already have one here, was the inspiration or the model for this shell. And I just love the sea colors, sea blue colors here, are blue cabbage dyed papers. So you might still notice an odor. I've had them airing out for over 2 weeks. And a fun part of this paper that I'm using, it sat out through 2 thunder and lightning storms here in the Pacific Northwest. And in fact, the first night I didn't realize, or I forgot, and so it got rained on. So a lot of the blue, the person who dyed it didn't use any Morton or any fixative to seal the color in. And so you're going to notice a lot of rain running and or a lot of the blues just pooling together. But I love that part because it came out of the rain so wrinkly once it was dried. Lightning did not strike it, but that's okay because I accidentally had it in a metal basket. Again, with the French link, one of the benefits is your pages will lay flat and you'll have limited gutters. But note that I do use art paper, and a lot of it is acrylic painted art paper as my hinges when I bound or when I hinge two single pages together. So a lot of them you'll either have to bend as we go along or go ahead and just massage just to get them soft again. But they are really flexible once you've been using this journal often. This is just a little packet of this paper here is the newsprint. I was practicing some of my acrylic paint mark making and give you some extra paper so that if you are going to use this to document some of your beachcombing collection items and create sort of like a grid, I did cut up some of the, how did I put this in? Oh, here we go. This is just the wrapper on the outside, and here's your origami. This is Japanese origami paper, Japanese washi paper my brother brought back from Japan. Actually, a design on the paper of circles and lines. But I cut up your Strathmore drawing papers into squares, and you can continue to cut these down depending on how you want to create your sketch grids or your collages. It's whoever owns this gets to do it their way. There's a couple of paper clips with agates on the end, authentic stone agates, and then little pieces of the rest of the collage, mixed media collage that I have on the back of the Columbia River running towards the Pacific Ocean. And then a lot of acrylic, again, the art papers that I have as the hinges that I used to put two individual papers together. Bird paper clip and a little charm. I thought that would be perfect since you're collecting little treasures throughout. And then here is the Strathmore drawing paper. It's off-white, so I didn't use white this time. I love fabric art, and these are Japanese pieces, and then one bookbinding spine, you know, the mull that I typically put on the spine. This came from a vintage book or antique book. And then here is that vintage French fabric, the grain sack fabric. It almost has like a rough boucle texture to it. I did back a lot of the fabrics with this film, because typically when I do bookbinding, you want to back it with some paper or mulberry paper, for example, so that the glue doesn't seep through to the fabric. So I prepped all these fabrics thinking this might be the cover. But as you see, this could be the cover of your future book, another book you're making, or a journal, or a piece of art. A piece of the Nazare surf, and this guy is actually already catching the wave down. So that's the one on the blue surfboard. I did mention I've been into abstract art lately, especially with acrylics. So I just taped this on here, washi taped it, but I have a series of acrylic stickers now, hand-painted acrylic stickers. This one is of Surfer Boy with his surfboard and one in the background there, and he's under a shack. And these are the colors of this journal: the blues, the greens, and the sand, and then some of the earthy colors from seashells, which you could cut up, but I didn't want to cut up Surfer Boy, and he's actually cheering on the surfer who's able to go ride a giant wave on Nazare. So I thought that was fun, and I didn't want to cover up the information about the bookplate that's coming up from Italy. This Italian porcelain and pottery, and these were the original book pages, I think, History of Ceramic Art. So I thought it was very fitting because some of the pieces that you find in the ocean are in fact of pottery. So these aren't the most intricate, but you know they came from pottery. And who knows how old they are considering how smooth they've already become. You know, they're almost not like pottery anymore. But I thought it would be fun to sketch out some of your favorite pieces, you know, as you're creating your art. And then this is another layout of that same sticker abstract sticker, and that was part of the Surfer Boy. And here I have a longer sticker. So these stickers have clear background. So I wonder if I could try to peel one back for you and show you. These are not palettes. I've actually intentionally drawn these or painted these as abstracts. So it usually takes me a couple days as I layer the designs or colors that I want on there. So if I peel this back, you'll see the clear nature of that sticker right on there. And I didn't want to stick it down, but how amazing would that be if you had a piece of paper with a different color background already, or clear, just because you could see some of those clear gaps there. Some of my hand-drawn stickers on my coffee shop, in my coffee shop, but I just wanted to dive into something more, what's the term that I'm looking for, a little bit more compact, something that you could put, artwork that you can put in your journals and your books, and or mail to people or gift to people. This could become a gift card. And I even have one of these vintage, what did they call these? Not Mylar, but these envelopes. And it fits in there perfectly. And this one is called surfboards, so there are more surfboards in the background here. And almost like the body of a bird, just watching the surfer dude right here in this abstract. And I'm just really happy with how it came out, how it included a lot of surfboard images, especially with the front and page covers. Abstract acrylic paints, where I actually just either rolled, smudged, and or went crazy with my paintbrushes with no form, no reason, but then waited till they dried and tried to find actual images. Or I'm always seeing things in my abstract art, and so I went ahead and outlined the fish and the little goldfish that I found in this abstract. And this little, I think it was a Dutch photography advertisement. It's just because I want to highlight some of the colors, which are exactly the same colors that I use, the sea blues and greens. And then some of these acrylic, metallic paints of rust and umber throughout the journal. So it was almost by sheer luck, but I guess I like my certain colors, earthy colors. And you'll notice on my desk here, I have this new book talking about mixing up new paints drawn from the wild, how you can collect and create your own dyes and own paints and pastels and use ingredients that Mother Nature already provided, because a lot of us artists know exactly how expensive our materials are, especially these nice pastels and different paints and pigments. And I could just go crazy trying to mix up new paints for myself. So I don't remember how many pages there are, but there's over 100, plenty for any artist to fill, and you're going to notice a lot of blank pages too. This is a bigger piece of the art sticker, and this is definitely the main part that I wanted to actually frame and or, you know, go ahead and glue down into your book, but I've just washi taped it so that you could put this anywhere. You could gift it, you can move it into another journal, you can cut it up into smaller stickers and give them, you know, away as gift cards. You know, those small, I forget what they call them, the little paintings that people trade and buy on eBay. I think I might do small painting stickers as my trade idea. Some sketches, loose Sumi ink sketches. You know, I just do my Sumi ink and my calligraphy brushes that I love. But I thought, of course I have to draw a killer whale because they are pretty. There's 2 pods up here in the Pacific Northwest that keep coming back every year, and they eat salmon, strictly salmon, and that's it. French, vintage French pages, including little bits in case you want to do some collaging, a leather specimen tag, a watercolor that I created, but I thought this might become one of your specimen tags, just like the one from the origami shell that I have on the front. So this layout here is one of the acrylic on watercolors that I was swatching out for the sands, and I had this leftover sale from my Red Sail in the Sunset poetry book, And I love this one because it's ripped, but it just naturally formed into a sail, and it has its little rope. I don't have the boat beneath it, but that could be the boat beneath it. So opposite side, I have that eerie vintage. But if I know the artist, I will highlight them on this, not only on this channel, but also in the description box below. So if you ever want to know if I found out who an artist is, check that description box. Another agate paper clip. And then here's an example of how you could lay out your pages with all the extra, papers, Strathmore drawing papers that I've given you that you can cut up. These are slightly bigger squares, which I just cobbled together pieces of painted strips that I had done when swatching out the different golds that I wanted to include in the for the seashells. And here's one of the my very first abstract acrylic paint stickers that I made for by Sand and Sea. So sand color and the sea. And this poor little sailboat is trying to navigate through the sandy rocks and corals to get back to shore. So the two other squares, you can either make your own abstract or sketches or stones that you've collected outside, things that you've found in your own beach. You could sketch these out and have them, and then write about where you found them and the date and who you're with. You'll notice I still do my koi fish, but I'm trying to mute them down and not use them so much, so you'll find them in the spine a lot and covered with mulberry just to fade them out. And then here's that lovely rain, the staining that happened on that very first thunder and lightning storm that happened. Abstract fish is a family of, well, they could be anything, of any type of fish. And in fact, I have this fabric fish right here. Kind of reminded me of the Native American artists' rendition, sketches of the killer whales, their style of painting and carving. But I just love this big ocean of sea blues, and I have a little bit more, so I saved myself a page here of some of the blue school of fish, so I could put it in my own sea journal. More sea blues. Abstract sticker. I went ahead and stuck this one onto an acrylic painted watercolor. I think it's probably Arches. And then I just washi taped this small little patch of the Nazare surf blue because I love the texture of that blue, and it was just the perfect blue that I had mixed for the ocean. And so I thought that actually makes a nice contrast. And this abstract is meant to represent the deep blue sea, how below a certain level, you can't see anything down there. You might see a hint of a fin, you might see a hint of a shadow, some little patches of light coming through, or is that a trick of the eye? So the deep blue sea, so dark, but it has not only treasures that you're able to find, but also the most unique sea creatures and animals down there. That envelope, part of an envelope, and then some places for you to do your art. Sailboat, just like this raggedy one that these little boys are sailing. So this is made of some sort of packaging paper that I was trying to make into the origami shell, but it was a little too difficult, so you'll see my lines here. A little tuck of a little more of my abstract fish. This is meant to represent some salmon here in the Pacific Northwest, coho, who's actually trying to catch the fly bait from this fisherman. So you'll see the fishing line and then a little bit of the fly fish bait and a little piece of the rest of the lure right there. So my friend actually used to go fishing every spring, early spring, like in March, mid to late March, in the Olympic mountains here in the Pacific Northwest, and you'll get these jets coming from the ocean, and so a lot of the salmon will come back and spawn in the Olympics, and they go back up through the river for the summer. And so there's the ocean and the Rocky Mountains and the terrain around the Olympic forest. So and of course the sands. This is mulberry paper that I pastel chalked, the soft pastels, and then waxed it with beeswax. And then once it was waxed, I went ahead and added just a few more details of this sperm whale, just like the little suckerfish that usually attach themselves to sperm whale, just because apparently they're too lazy to swim on their own, so they just hitch a ride with these giants that are the size of 3 elephants and can dive deep into the depths of 6,000 feet or more and stay underwater without taking a breath for 2 hours. So it's just magical what you'll find in the ocean Mother Nature has created. Tucks so that you can keep some of your sketches where they're of the killer whale. This is just calligraphy paper, fine calligraphy paper, and my Sumi ink, super fast sketch. So I didn't even bother painting them because the paper is so fine. But you'll see another image where I did paint it in. And then some paper for you to be able to write. And then just tuck that away in your little vintage or your antique mailing envelope to Burbank, California. Oh, the Milton Bradley Company. And then your paper clips that I love. More of the original book pages and the porcelain and the pottery for your sketching. You could clear gesso these and create your own pottery and or sketches of porcelain. I use a lot of vellum just so you could see through the next pages. This is one of the abstract pieces of artwork that you've probably seen me display on Instagram already. It seems like for every project now, because I have so many strips of paper when I'm tearing them down to meet the size of the book, that I've either already painted or can paint and then create these basket weave abstracts for you. And this abstract actually represents the cottage, the front cottage. Here we go. So it's the main house and the shuttered windows that they shuttered right before the storm. And then the sand, because they're right on the beach, and then part of the sea right along the bottom. So I found colors and wove them together specifically to create the house, the window with shutters, and then the sand and the sea. And the best part about this is these little origami booklets are on magnet. So not only are they origami Chinese and Japanese rice paper or calligraphy paper so that you could do your own sketches of these little books, but they have this super powerful magnet hidden on the front so that as you're holding abstract art, the pages don't come open, and that's why the magnets are on the front. These two I left white because they are meant to represent the white window and shutters that they had on the house. But also I figured you could paint them anything you want or add your own artwork to the cover if you wanted to, just like this one. So this one I didn't want to stand out. I wanted it to blend with the sand line. So I covered it with an acrylic patch to represent the sand. And this is Japanese rice paper, Japanese washi paper that my brother brought back. And I have painted on this acrylic and watercolor and sketched on these. So these I did sew down just a little bit because they're heavier washi papers, but there too is a hidden magnet. Sometimes you have to just let it fall and it'll find its place if you can't remember where the hidden one is. And then this is my favorite. This one is the origami booklet, again Japanese washi paper, representing Haystack Rock in Cannon Beach. And there's the ocean there along the Oregon coast. So Haystack Rock had low tide the other day, so all the puffins were back and all the starfish were exposed, and of course all the jellyfish were on the sand. So that too has a magnet. Click. And there's some of your oceans. Some of them are the transparency film that I use to do my paint swatching and my paint mixing on. So this is my favorite piece in the whole book. So I think that was right here, right? Yeah. Kind of time consuming to find the right pieces to create the scene. So I hope I find time to make myself one for my own Beachcombers journal, art journal, and art book. Piece of a sail from that same packaging material that I used. abstract arts directly. I just wanted to show you you can do abstract art directly without preparing your French vintage and antique papers. I did not gesso this at all. So I did put a layer of the mulberry, the waxed mulberry paper on there first as a layer, and then I just acrylic painted right on it. And this is actually at Tillamook in Oregon. There is a beach lighthouse right on a rock out in Tillamook, and then the ocean, and there's a path that leads to the mainland here. But this lighthouse is meant to bring in the sailors and fishermen. And this is an authentic photograph I got on eBay of someone. It looks like a little kid's stuffed animal is down there, so obviously it's somebody with their kid sailing. And then this rice paper, calligraphy rice paper, actually has a light hue of real sailboat plans on how to build your own and how to build the mast and all of the sizes and notes, etc. So this was in the public domain, and I have the other part of the image throughout the journal. And then a couple of cards just so you could document what type of art you're making if there's no room for you to create your details. Original book pages. Here are the other parts of the sailboat plans, and I made some of these into pockets so that you could hide little notes in there of your artwork. And then of course behind it I just hinged it so you could still use these original book pages to create more art, and you could see more of the acrylic paint hinges that I've used throughout, and all these grungy French documents. I'll list who I get my French documents from below in the description box, and more spots for your notes about the art that you're creating. Packaging pages, because I love how they look, you know, with light colored papers and or sketch. So if you have a sketch of something, or little boxes. French schoolwork paper, because I love it with a fountain pen. This is actually a calligraphy fountain pen that I have had in storage for a while, and I finally found, you know, the ocean storm. So this is meant to be an ocean storm, so you'll see a lot of the black part, the dark part of the sea being exposed, and the top blue layers of that storm. And so that I thought might look pretty on one of these pages. Paint color for the side of the house, that Florida Keys house, flipper house. And I just love seeing the handwriting through these papers. And then this one is a side tuck, so there's the main part of the sailboat and the dimensions. And then here's another piece. So I just cut up the sailboat plans. This is the only one that I glued all the way down. National Geographic book that I'll be making for my Beachcombers collection. Then another piece of my By Sand and Sea abstract stickers that I had cut up to be, these look like 2x2, but again there's the sand and the sea. And in my mind when I'm creating these, I always have a place. So the Olympic National Forest, it's a forest right along the ocean. Photos, if you've seen my one of my last art journals, these are actual photo proofs that my dad took. So these are sandy, well they're not sandy, they're rocky beach scenes. So I'll try to zoom in on those photographs. Probably 1960s, which was when my dad was traveling a lot with his first engineering and job. And then just a little place to write more of your notes, and an authentic sea star. I think, Donna, did you give me this wallpaper? It's awesome. I love this wallpaper. I thought this too might be the book cover, or at least the back of the book cover, but I couldn't do it. So whoever gets to own this can make this into their own artwork, because I love historic wallpapers. And then here you have your antique 1800s survey document, which by the way has my acrylic painted, I finally did it, pieces, remnants of oars. I love old oars. I have old oars that I've collected and that my uncle gave me when he passed away, and they look even grungier than this. And so when I was painting these strips, I had no idea, you know, these might be art paper strips or packaging paper strips. When I was mixing up the paints, I had no idea what I was going to use them for. But then when I went back to my own personal sketchbook that I did a flip through of a couple weeks ago, I found this photo and I thought, I was making these oars all along, and just, it's amazing what your brain can remember when you're just in the flow of making art or what it's influenced by. Look at these stains. I hope that shows up on the camera. These thunderstorms and rain, it's amazing. And then this is a humpback whale. Same process where I had waxed, or I had done soft pastel on the mulberry paper and then waxed it with a beeswax after. And then any fine details I used oil pastel. On mulberry, that was watercolored. So there, you'll see that. And I did give you some of the details underneath, and I left it tucked like this or open because I thought you could add some of your seaweed and or other fish, maybe a few or shells, because I have some of the acrylic painted strips that I created for the shellfish. There's other fish floating by. Just stuck them in there. More of my abstract stickers of the Pacific Northwest, and there's part of the Puget Sound, and then parts of the Seattle area. A lot of greenery or actual sand, not just in the Olympic Mountains, but also the area itself has a lot of forested area, not just city. Okay, I had layered some watercolored mulberry paper on here just to create sort of a ocean or waterscape scene. Some of these vintage racehorse documenting who won and I think the timing, but it's pretty cool. So these came from Forever French, and they're extra large format, and so I was able to split those in half, and I'm using it in here because of the blue handwriting and the blue fonts. So these you could layer with your abstract and or collages. Again, just like with all my open spine books, you know, the mull that I had on the spine, I forgot to highlight that for you, is actually an ocean scene, ocean storm, but I layered a lot of that paper instead of muslin to be able to give you this flexibility, because I knew this book would actually be probably fully loaded with artwork and or ephemera, depending on who owns it. Sperm whales. It's a watercolor on Strathmore paper. They don't always smile like that. It just was an accident. They're a lot more stern and serene, and there's small slitted eyes and their one left nostril for breathing when they come to the surface, and a few of their free riding suckerfish. If you need to, just take your big rock. Problem solved. So, and then parts of the original book spine, this book spine for the history of ceramic arts. And I used a lot of the drywall tape here just to give it a little more flexibility since it's in the back. And then there's the back page with a little bit more of that original spine. This I tipped in because this mixed media can stick to original book pages, you know, especially when it's hot. And so, and of course, you know, with the acrylic paint and the pastels, some of your found pottery and found ceramics in here on display. I'll close it for you and show you that the book is not yet alligator mouth. And that's the benefit of using those paints, the painted art papers as the hinges for the pages. It actually creates more bulk on the spine than fabrics. And I love my fabrics because they're more flexible when I create hinges. But in this case, I intentionally used acrylic or painted art papers. So the spine, I forgot to highlight that these are actually painted mulberry paper and or art paper to create a thicker muslin layered look of a stormy ocean. Not Nazare, but any other sea storm. And then of course I had to put my leather strip here. They look like they are decorative. They're not functional, meaning they weren't necessary to keep the front and back spines attached to the book. Since I have the French fabrics here that I used as a tape are actually hidden underneath the artwork here, so they're already glued to the book with that. But these ropes here that I braided are actually there to help protect some of this painted paper that I used as muslin, but also just to give the book a little more strength because I knew it would be heavy. So just like that, my personal sketchbook that I did a tour of in the last video, I didn't want this book flopping around, especially if you're going to be traveling with it. So see how the spine, even though it's an open spine, does not flop around or isn't flimsy. I hope you like this book. I might have been a little too chatty again, but there are so many details. This one took me a lot longer, almost 3 weeks, and find a lot of these pieces in storage because, again, we're still trying to sell my mom's house. But come back again. I'm trying to make that garden journal, the grungy one, super grungy. It'll be open spine just like Cecil's garden from last year. That was really popular. I'm trying to hopefully finish that before any move has to happen this summer. But this will be for sale. Check my coffee shop or DM me on Instagram directly. And the tin of collected rocks and seashells and porcelain bits from Greece will be separated out. Thanks again. Enjoy your summer, and I hope this book finds its way to an owner who has so many sketches and things to document. Take care. See you soon.